I'm Alice.
And I'm Brett.
And this is the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. Welcome back to the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs. I'm your host, Alice, and I'm joined, as always, by my TikToking co-host, Brett.
Oh, you know me, Alice. I am just all about TikTok. I am the most cutting-edge person ever. Actually, I don't even have TikTok. So I'm really a big loser. But even I,
you literally are not
person,
a TikToker. I'm sorry. But
even I have heard of our guest today, despite not having TikTok.
Tell us about her. Who do we have here
I'm going to let her tell us about herself.
Okay, fine. I will do the lead-in. You guys, you asked for it. We somehow cajoled her into coming on our show, but we have true crime TikToker and like the real deal, delivering truth bombs left and right. And you know how we love people who speak clearly, evidence-based, but she does it in TikTok form, which is like a real amazing talent. We have Britni Nicole Smith here. Britni, thank you for being here today.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Honestly, I can't believe this is happening right now, so I'm so excited.
Well, the people want to know. Okay, so not joking. We really are like terrible with TikTok. We don't understand it. We're a little bit afraid to use it. We don't know how to download it on our phones. That's more Brett than me, but let's just pretend it's both of us. So can you just tell us a little bit about how you came to the TikTok medium, and did you always know you wanted to talk about true crime? Just give us kind of your origin story with TikTok.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, like I was like everyone else in 2020 during the pandemic, like, you know, you're sitting around. I had a month where I didn't go to work at all and got really into TikTok. I really didn't see anything true crime because like your algorithm gives you kind of what you like. And I don't know why, but I wasn't really seeing much true crime. But for 2 years, I was just kind of like a backseat person on TikTok. And then one night in September 2022, so like I literally think it was today, exactly 2 years ago, I was sitting at home on a Friday night watching the new Dahmer series on Netflix, the one with Evan Peters. And it was like the best rendition of modern day Dahmer that I had seen. And I was just sitting there and I was like, you know what? I want to make a TikTok about my Dahmer experience. And I don't know if you guys knew about this, but I took classes when I was early on in college. I took a class in forensic science and it was called Dead Men Do Tell Tales. So it was a really, really cool class. And it went into kind of like how the human body tells the story of death. And my professor in the class was the medical examiner in the Lacey Peterson case. And then they had guest teachers like every couple weeks. And for 2 weeks, I had the lead detective in the Dahmer case be my professor. So that was pretty insane. So I was like, you know what? I want to talk about this in TikTok tonight. And I just sat there and I recorded like a 10-minute long video. And I was talking about how I saw every single picture that Dahmer took on his Polaroid and how we saw this, you know, insane PowerPoint of every single photograph taken in his apartment, every single piece of evidence. There was thousands of pictures. I know he had taken about like 100, but he was taking pictures, you know, during every single stage of what he was doing to his victims. So I went on TikTok and I was like, I told the story. I went to bed and I woke up with like millions of views and I don't even know how many followers. And people were like going insane. I woke up and I was like, what just happened? And all these people were like, we want to know more. Like, tell us more about this class. Tell us more about what you know. So that's kind of how it all started. And from there, I did a big series on Dahmer and my experience being taught by Pat Kennedy, who has since died. He was the one he had the big handlebar mustache and was in every single documentary. And he was a Milwaukee police officer, just like my parents. They knew him. So yeah, I started talking about that. And I started talking about Scott. And I did a huge series on Chris Watts. I have like I just have these kind of weird connections to all of these cases, which we can get into a little bit later. But yeah, and just about true crime in general, it's always been my passion. So my educational background and career background is not true crime, but it's always been my passion and like what I've leaned on. So I literally listen to books for hours a day, every day. The entire time I was in undergrad and grad school, all I did was listen to documentaries and books on my drives and while studying. So it's always been like my big, big, big passion, and I could never get enough of things, basically.
Let me just say that sounds like the coolest class ever.
It
I mean,
was.
wow.
It was.
Yeah, that sounds
It
great.
was.
I can see why people wanted you to talk more about that class, because that class sounds great.
Well, and it was so funny too because it was so interesting, and I was in there like my eyes just glued to the screen. I couldn't get enough of it. And by like the third week, people just stopped showing up. And by like the fifth, sixth week, there was maybe like 12 people in this like 200-person class because it was so graphic and so insane. Like every medical examiner, crime scene person would come in with these pictures and show like this is how this kind of death looks. This is how a body looks when it's buried for 30 years when we exhume it. Like it was really, really graphic. And yeah, it was not for the weak, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
And you know, I mean, it's every now and then we talk about this with people about sometimes looking at the photographs can be valuable, but you have to decide whether or not that's something you want to do, because it is
100%.
not everybody can leave that behind, for one thing. You know, I mean, it
Yeah,
really sticks with some people. So I can see how some people didn't finish the class.
totally. And for me, it was really interesting because during the Dahmer weeks, you would think that like me as a woman would have been a little bit more afraid hearing about, somebody like Ted Bundy or somebody that focused on someone like me. And every single day when I left that class for Dahmer, I would literally be so scared. Like, I don't even know how to describe how I felt in my body. It was just like nothing I had ever experienced. It was so, so, so scary and so jarring. I remember being in an elevator and I was just like, almost about to have a panic attack after one of the days because it was just like, this really happened. Like, the name Jeffrey Dahmer, we hear it all the time, especially being from Milwaukee, but to actually see really what he did, it was unbelievable.
so I have two observations from that. One is this incredibly fascinating class where it went from 200 people to maybe a dozen people. You, however, were able to basically channel what that class was and build like so many followers because of the way you story tell it. But second, this all makes a lot of sense as to why I think people really look to your videos. Something I really, really respect about it is you come from a place of being very grounded. We see a lot of people who talk about true crime speak about it in a sensational way where it's as if it's just fiction. But like what you just said, when you had that almost panic attack, I think if any of us truly think about the stories that we're covering or reading about, it is absolutely the core of the depravity of humanity, and that's terrifying. And while you can't live your life every day like that, I think with that humility you're able to see facts more clearly and present them in a way that resonates with your audience, which is why I think your videos are so genuine and authentic, because they come from a place of this is real life. This is not for play. And it's clear that you're trying to convey that because a sense of justice and seeking truth comes through your videos.
Yeah, I really appreciate you putting it that way because that's exactly what I'm trying to depict here. I really like to go into every crime. I get interested in certain crimes because of like the deep empathy that I have in my body. I can't stand when people need to sensationalize a case when there's already so many horrific facts that go with them. Like, we don't need to make this any worse by trying to get views, by crazy headlines, or just making stuff up. Conspiracy theories kill me. So I always like to go into it like thinking, if this was my family, how would I want people to speak about it? And I hope that like my authenticity comes through with that. And that's also another big reason why I do think people follow me. I've stayed true to this. I know a lot of people get into TikTok and they get a couple 100,000 followers and their goal is to become an influencer or to get brand deals. And I have not wanted to do any of that. I'm like, I want to be me. I don't want to start getting makeup deals on the backs of all these horrible crimes that I've been talking about. That's just not me.
So I do want to talk about this because, when people start reaching out to us and they're like, you need to talk to Britni, she's on TikTok. And I thought, TikTok, because TikTok, true crime TikTok, I got to tell you, doesn't have the best reputation as far as I'm concerned, because what I see a lot is just, it's always these 30-second sound bites that are devoid of any complexity, that strip away, all the evidence and just present sort of an emotional take on a crime, usually incorrect. And they spread misinformation, and it's so hard not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You, on the other hand, seem to have taken a different perspective. So tell us a little bit about true crime TikTok in general and your particular approach to these cases.
Yeah. So in general, I see a lot of reading off of a news article, repeating what they heard another person say, nothing really riveting or like new. I hear, especially like when you look into the case like that just happened, the Brian Koberger case, the information that is spread on that, I'm like, I will never speak about this case. But the way that I like to go about it is I don't like to talk about cases that are new or ongoing. This is very, very different for me too, compared to other true crime TikTokers. A lot of them will do like a new video on a new case every day. I have read so many books on cases, and I'm very, very, very particular about the books that I read. And I'll read them hundreds of times. Like, I'm not even kidding. I'll listen to them on Audible. There's been books that I've been reading for years, and I will pick something up new, and it's just very ingrained in my brain that way. So I'll read tons of books, read every single thing I can get from court documents, and then I go into one case and I'll start from the very beginning and give every detail down to the end. And some people don't like that. Some people will be like, oh, can you start talking about another case? Or like, you're so obsessed with this case, like you should move on. And I'm like, you know what? There's people though that want all of these insane details. They want to know everything. And my goal when I do a case is to get whoever joined along and watched every video, I want them to know pretty much as I do. That's kind of how I feel about it. So that's how I do things. And it's very different than other true crime TikTokers.
Yeah, that is really different. Can you tell us a little bit about how you cover cases? Do you, finish covering a case before moving on to the next one? What frequency do you do it? Because I know there's kind of an algorithm that you have to, there's like some game you have to play among TikTok to make sure it gets to the right people's eyes.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because I feel like whenever I start something out, like even Scott Peterson, this last series that I did, it really blew up at times. But it's disappointing because some of the videos that I would make that would have so much good information would get like a couple thousand views, and then you make one the next day and it has 1 million. So the algorithm is really hard to play. I will start from like the very beginning of a case. I'll compile all the information that I have from every book or documentary or papers, and I'll kind of lay it out in a way that I can go and like make a video on each section that I want to talk about. But yeah, usually it'll take me several months because, like I said, this is not something I do for money. This is just something I do in my free time, just to talk about true crime with people that are interested. Like, people in my life don't really want to talk about this. So it's like my way to talk to people about what I'm passionate about.
That's why I made Alice start doing a podcast, because nobody wanted to talk about this stuff with me. So it's like, let's do a podcast. We can talk about it every week.
Exactly.
So, you've mentioned Scott Peterson several times. And as you say you don't want to do ongoing cases, but it seems like Scott Peterson is the case that will never die. And every couple of years, there's a new sort of media push from his team, media/legal push, to essentially rehash the same old arguments about how he's actually innocent. He was framed. It was the robbers or the pregnant woman snatching cult.
Yeah.
So tell us, how did you get so interested in the Scott Peterson case? How have you covered it? And what has the reaction been from people who've seen your perspective on Scott Peterson?
Definitely. pretty much my interest started in this when I was in that class. So the actual main professor for this class at UWM, should have mentioned that it was at UW Milwaukee. I think they still offer this class, by the way, but his name was Brian Peterson, coincidentally, and he was the medical examiner in, what's the county that Modesto is in? I'm drawing a blank right now.
I don't know. Bay
Or
County.
Modesto.
Yeah, or Modesto. So he was the medical examiner at the time. And basically, he did, I think, about a month of coverage on Lacey and the whole case. And what really got me was seeing the crime scene, oh, not crime scene, but like her autopsy pictures. So these are not publicized anywhere. And I'm very grateful for that, because there's lots of her family that has never seen those. But seeing her body and the baby's body, those are like something I will never get out of my head. Like you said, some of those things you can't get out of your head. And I'm sure you've experienced this a lot, but it really made me want to get into the case. So that was in 2011 that I took that class. So it was a very long time ago. I started just reading everything possible, watching all documentaries, and I have just had a raging hatred for Scott and his family, mostly because of the torture that they have put Lacey's family through. It's just unbelievable to me. And I'm sure you guys love hearing it too now, when his family is always trying to say now how Amber and him, it was a very short sexual relationship. There was nothing to it. How he just couldn't wait.
Wouldn't even call it an affair. I mean, that's a strong word to use, an affair.
Oh my God. This was one of my big strong suits, talking about Scott Peterson, because I have like so much information to share when people want to know about Scott and Amber's relationship. I can't even, like, to try to put this down to a sexual relationship only is absolute insanity. When this man was talking about how her daughter was all he needed, and all of this, we can talk about it, but there's just so many things.
Well, and I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because, you have so much information. So here's the thing about Scott in particular. And I think this also digs at you, because it really digs at me.
Yeah.
When people break the law, even when they murder in the most horrific ways, if the justice is met, they're convicted and they're serving their time. Okay. It's the continual driving of dollars and eyes and re-victimization of the family that really grinds me, because that's the problem I have, because the amount of money, the fact that nonprofits are taking on new endeavors to, free him. But so I'll pose this question to you, because you are the, keeper of all this knowledge. It is a circumstantial case. They didn't have a body for a very long time. Who the heck cares? Circumstantial evidence is evidence, as you know very clearly. The evidence in this case is overwhelming that he's guilty. Yet he continually is able to capture the attention of millions of people around the world who want to prove him innocent. What do you think in terms of the psychology of the people? Like, there are so many murders, so many actually potentially people who could use help in terms of wrongful convictions. Why Scott Peterson? And if you say he's cute, okay, but can I just say, he maybe used to be cute. He's not cute anymore.
Yeah, have you seen him
what
now?
is it? What is it about Scott?
Ponytail and his different hairstyles and all those clips. I was like, I'm just watching this to see his hair. But no, I think I definitely think it's his looks. I think it's his charm. I think that's how he always thought he was going to get away with everything in his entire life. If you look at how he lived his entire life, it was so much lying, stealing, cheating, and he got through so much with his charm. And I think now it's these groups of women that are just so supportive of him, and his family really chooses to bring up things that make people question everything, because they exclude so much of the evidence. They downplay Amber so much. They talk about how he couldn't wait to become a dad. They talk about how much he loved Lacey. They don't ever mention any of the details having to do with this. And I think truthfully too, people don't take the time to really get into cases, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of people like the entertainment part of it, but they really, really don't care about all the details. They'll watch a documentary and that's good enough for them. And that's what I think the general true crime loving population is probably like. I know there's a lot of people that will pick up a book and, read a discovery, but I, I think a lot of people will go on documentaries and they can be very, very convincing.
And I get that documentaries can be convincing and they're meant to manipulate you, but they're counter documentaries too. And one thing that I don't understand, and I'm glad both of you brought this up, the fact of the matter is the vast majority of the people who support Scott Peterson are women.
Yes.
And one thing that I do not understand, I feel like as a society, true crime, everything, we're doing a better job of recognizing the role that men play, frankly, in murdering women and in the violence towards women. And we talk about that and we play lip service to it. And yet again and again and again, I see true crime creators, documentaries, true crime fans defending these men who have brutally murdered women. And I cannot understand the disconnect. I don't get it. So I don't know if I realize you're not a psychologist, but if you or Alice can explain that to me, I would love to hear why that is.
Britni, maybe you can speak to that because you're actually with TikTok, people can comment a lot. So I'm really curious, like, of all the comments you get, I'm sure there's a percentage of, supporters for Scott who give you a piece of their mind, which is probably not evidence-based, probably more emotion-based. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you see in terms of the blowback, or if you actually don't see much of that and, what that says about the psychology.
I see it a ton for Scott Peterson, but this also kind of goes back to Chris Watts. It's a lot of women that do not want to put the blame on the narcissistic murdering man, and they want to put it on a woman. They want to put it on a mistress. They want to act like a man was manipulated, like they're not capable of doing this kind of thing, especially if they're even mildly good looking or very nice or come off as put together. That really, really, I literally cannot. It's like they just physically can't put the blame on the man, and I don't understand it.
Chris Watts admits to murdering his little girls.
I know, and they're still supportive. Can I ask? And this is, I don't want this to be true, but now we're diving into the psychologies of why this is. This is me trying to give like the best interpretation possible to still believe in the goodness of people and women. Is it possible, especially with these semi-charming, kind of good-looking people, is that the world, like we talked about earlier, when you look at the depravity of humanity, is terrifying. Like, if you really think about it, I probably would be paralyzed, could never leave my house. That we want monsters to look like monsters. And so when a monster looks like your husband or your brother or your next door neighbor, it's a little bit too close to home, and it's too scary for me to wrap my mind around the fact that someone who can speak like me, who can think for the most part like me, who has an upstanding job or whatever, can get married and have kids, can do such horrific things. It completely shatters my perception of what I think the world is, that I have to almost believe that only monsters look like monsters. I mean, that's the best interpretation I can give of it. And I still think it's wrong, but I mean, what do you think about that?
I think that's very true. And it actually just jogged my memory. And this might sound really mean, but this kind of goes back to Chris Watts. People don't talk as much shit about Lacey as they do Shanann Watts, but that case in particular, and I think it kind of goes across, I think there's a lot of people that find themselves in a marriage very similar, where there's this man who is a very low effort husband who they can kind of relate to, or a man who their husband maybe isn't super interested in their kids or doesn't want to have another baby. And I think a lot of these women try to vilify the woman in the relationship because they don't want to imagine their husband ever doing that to them. And they want to say like, well, this would never happen to me. This excludes me. So they really just rip apart the woman. It's a lot of people I think that are in like insecure or unhappy relationships, maybe very deep seated, I think. And it might sound kind of mean, but I saw so much hatred for Shanann Watts in my series, so much support for Chris. And even so with Scott, I mean, there's so many people that I still see saying an affair does not equal murder. And that's like, that's all they have to say. It's just crazy to me.
Right. And that's, you can have empathy for the victim, even if you think the perpetrator is innocent, which I don't understand what the Chris Watts explanation is. But for the Scott Peterson, like, there's no reason to denigrate Connor and Lacey, even if you think Scott is wrongfully convicted. And the fact that those are kind of dichotomous thoughts in people's minds is baffling to me. And I think points more to what you were saying, that the women who you see are supporting
Yeah,
these killers, really, they're killers. And I think it's way beyond a reasonable doubt that they're killers. They not only want to think that that can't happen to me, but if there's something wrong with the victim, then I can't become a victim, because I would
exactly.
never do something like that, you know?
Yes, that's exactly how I meant to say that.
No, I'm just putting an exclamation point on what you just
No,
said.
that's perfect. I mean, and it's really sad. It just draws on insecurities. But at the end of the day, I think it makes us all look bad as women by like supporting these men in any way. I honestly feel sorry for these people, and like truly, like, it's not even like I want to laugh at them. I don't want to educate them. I feel sorry for them that they choose to feel that way. And again, victimize Lacey's family. And truthfully, I think scare the shit out of people in this whole world of Scott's world. I mean, if I was Amber and I knew that there was people fighting for him to get out of prison, when his last day of freedom, there was MapQuest directions to her office in his vehicle with his gun, with his dagger, with his ropes. Like, I would be terrified if there was people fighting to get this man out of prison.
And tens of thousands of dollars that he just accidentally had. It was just I
Oh,
mean, that happens to me all the time. People take out tens of thousands of dollars and give it to me, and I just
yeah,
mistakenly have it. I mean, really, the coincidences are amazing. And it's funny because people and their straw men, no one is saying an affair equals murder. But guess what? If you look at a lot of murders and men who kill their wives, guess what's often happening when they do
exactly.
that? An affair. And then when they do things like look up the currents in a body of water where they go fishing on the day their wife disappears, where her body then turns up months later, that's evidence to go along with your affair. And
Yes.
it blows my mind because look, I'm not saying there are innocent people out there who are in prison. There are. Scott Peterson's not one of them. And Scott Peterson is a complete worthless jerk. Like, why can't people put their their passions elsewhere? And you mentioned conspiracy theories, and you said you hate conspiracy theories. So there are conspiracy theories. I mean, Scott Peterson kind of brings it all together, right? Because you got the police
Right.
frame up conspiracy about the robbers, and then you have
The
this
kidnappers.
the baby, the pregnant woman sacrificing kidnappers, which a lot of people
Mhm.
believe in. What are your thoughts on those conspiracies?
Well, I just watching the Peacock documentary, that was such a painful watch. My favorite theory now from the family that they're saying is that the original burglars called more burglars, and those were the ones who now did this. And then this man with the orange van, like, what happened to the white van that you guys talked about in your 2017 documentary? Like, how, you're saying that this has all been here all along. Like, it's insane. It's so insane. But they know that people love this. They know that people want some physical evidence. And it's just, it's painful. And it's horrible to have to try to defend it because there's so much amazing information that is out there about the premeditation of what Scott did, that if people just started talking about that, if people just started talking about how he didn't want a kid, how he really didn't love Lacey and cheated on her, and how horrible he was during her pregnancy, if people talked about everything that he had talked about with Amber Fry, there would be no need to talk about any of this stuff. That's why I don't really focus on it, because I'm like, no, let's talk about, him taking Amber and her daughter for a hike and them each holding her hands and him, like, I want to talk about all that stuff.
Well, I mean, with that, so now you've been doing this for 2 years, maybe to the day, and on a medium where it's usually 30 seconds, your videos are not 30 seconds. They have the
Yeah.
detail that most TikTok videos don't. So with that, have you seen over the course of 2 years, and I agree with you that before you entered the scene on TikTok, there weren't people talking in such detail about the evidence of these cases. Have you seen any sort of trend in the past 2 years that people are more willing to listen to more information? Because we obviously are a distracted generation where it's hard to
Yeah.
listen to anything more than 30 seconds. I'd love, hopefully there's a positive of this. And so you're entering a space and bringing something new, and you're not only in the space, you're clearly thriving. So have you seen, a shift in the dialogue or people's desire for actual evidence rather than just sensationalism?
Yes, 100%. I think a vast majority of my followers are so incredible. They don't want to talk about conspiracy theory stuff. When I was originally doing like 3-minute videos, I would have people being like, please make a YouTube channel or do longer ones. Then you could do 10 minutes. And then people would just say, like, when I'm cleaning, I'll put my phone down and listen to you all day. Or like, before bed, like, I love your voice. I put my phone next to my bed and just let the videos play to fall asleep. So like, it's really, really nice to hear that people actually listen to the whole thing and say that they're waiting for the next part. It's really sweet and it's really encouraging to keep going. But as far as like evidence goes, like, yeah, I mean, honestly, I think people, when they hear like the level of detail that I go into, they really eat it up the same way that I do when I listen to it the first time. When I listen to, are you familiar with the author John Glatt?
No.
No.
No, I
Now I
don't think I
might go
know.
look him up.
Oh my God.
Tell
Okay.
us about him. Tell us about him.
He is like the daddy of true crime. He is incredible. His books, I've read every single one, some million times. They give the most insane level of incredible detail. When I listen to his books and I'm on my walks with my dogs or running, my jaw is to the floor. And I want to have my listeners kind of feel the same way when I'm talking about stuff. So I think people really want all those details. They just really don't know where to find it.
Have you considered doing a podcast or a YouTube? Or are you on TikTok? That's what you do.
So I did make a podcast. I made 2 episodes. I did one on Casey Anthony and then I did one on Nicole Kessinger. But it's just honestly really hard for me to like do a whole hour plus just completely on my own, just speaking. And it just seemed like a lot more effort than I was kind of willing to put into it. I also have like a crazy job. I travel a ton for work. So it's a little hard for me to do. I would love to get back into it, but I just don't know when. YouTube, I have no idea how to work YouTube. Like I'm a little bit older than that generation, so I never got into it. But I think that like 10-minute-ish frame kind of TikToks are kind of probably where I'll stay. And maybe if there's something really interesting that I can talk about in a podcast again, I'll do it. But it's hard to do it on your own. Did either of you ever do completely solo episodes before?
I've done one without Alice and I hated it.
You're
It was
right.
just me and I hated it.
but that's actually what's amazing, right? Because your videos are authentic. It doesn't feel scripted. You're usually shooting wherever life finds you, because you're right, life is busy. And so whatever works, it's clearly working for you. And podcast works for me and Brett because we are homebound after our kids go to bed. So it actually does work for us. Whereas, TikTok, I don't want my face anywhere. not because I care, because we're clearly being our faces right now. It's more like I have to like put on my face and look presentable. But I think that's great. And especially in a place like TikTok where there's so much noise because they are such short videos, it's so refreshing to know that you are in that space. It's
cool.
wonderful.
And it's really neat too when I have videos that even the ones that get lower views, I'll see people shared it 200 something times with other people. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, this is really cool that people actually want to know this level of detail and people really appreciate it. A lot of people will comment, I always thought Scott was innocent because of the documentaries, and thank you so much for changing my opinion. Like, I've got that on a lot of cases. I've also gotten a lot of people say, like with Casey Anthony's case too, where there was a lack of physical evidence for a lot of things, or people would say for Lacey and Kaylee, well, we didn't know how they died, so we can't conclude that. a lot of people I've taught them, you don't need to know how somebody died to to get somebody put away. Circumstantial evidence exists for this reason. So a lot of people I think have learned a lot of things that, were misconceptions a lot of time in the true crime world.
Thank goodness for someone to help educate on that. Okay, so you've mentioned a couple times that you don't have to like give away what you do in your day job, but
Yeah.
these videos obviously take a lot of time, not just because of the actual hours of filming, but like you said, you are putting in so many hours of research, reading books, court documents to make yourself educated in order to do it.
Yeah.
But you also have a very busy daytime job. Does your other professional life know about this world? Have you ever had like crossovers of the two where someone was like, "You're Brittany, the Scott Peterson Brittany"?
Well, so I started my most recent job a year ago, and it was funny because me and a girl became close friends, and she asked me for my TikTok, and I was like, ooh, do I give that to her? And I did. And she was like, oh my God. She's like, you're Hannah Montana. You're this girl,
Oh,
and now you're this girl. She's like, I can't believe this. But she thought it was really cool. There is a little bit, I don't really, honestly, I don't like the attention that I get from telling people that I have 250 plus thousand followers on TikTok. A lot of my family and even like friends don't even know that I do this, honestly. My background is actually, so it's very, very different. So I ended up going to undergrad for nutritional science and chemistry, and then I went to grad school for food science. So over the past decade now, I've been working in product development for food, flavor chemistry. Now I'm in sales so basically like teaching companies how to develop products, but then giving technical resources. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very, very different than what I do now. So I do like to keep it separate.
but
The
it's
time,
science based. That makes
yeah,
total sense why
very
your mind
science.
works the way it does. That's
Yes,
awesome.
yes. I originally took those classes because I was thinking about becoming potentially a medical examiner or something in the forensic science world. And then I was like, I'm not going to go to medical school to do this horrible job. And then that was actually the goal of that class, was to get people to do internships at the ME's office. And I remember back then they were like, it's 9 months and you get paid $100,000. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do it. And my dad and stepmom, who were Milwaukee police officers, they were like, Brittany, do you have any idea what your job there would be as an intern? And my dad started describing certain things. And I was like, oh, hell no. Like,
There's a
for
reason
me,
it's $100,000 pay, right?
there's a reason. And that's a hard earned $100,000. But yeah, then I kind of learned like people in the forensic world are kind of doing the same thing every day, running the same kind of tests. Yeah, my parents never wanted me to become a cop. So nutrition and all of that is it's very interesting. But at the end of the day, my passion does lie with true crime. And the time that I take now on cases, honestly, it might look like my TikToks take a lot of work, but they really don't. A lot of this stuff I just remember so well. Like, it's kind of nuts, but it's because I told you, like, I've read books hundreds of times. Like, I can remember quite a bit at this time.
So, what's one case you haven't covered yet on TikTok that you want to do?
Well, I started covering OJ Simpson, and then I got really busy with my wedding stuff.
Mm.
But I think that's a case where there's a ton of people now that think he is innocent and that his son, Jason, was responsible. And I'm like, let me
We
come
need
out
your voice,
here.
Brittany. I feel the
Yeah,
fire.
I know. I'm like, let me come out here and tell y'all what's the real story here. That's one that I definitely want to finish soon. The Menendez brothers, obviously, this is like the new hot topic now with Netflix. Huge conflicting information on that case, I'm sure, as you guys know. John Benet Ramsey is another one I really want to do. I hate how much her family has been vilified and what they've gone through. Yeah, those are like three big ones that I really want to do. But my cases, I take like 6 to 9 months to do one. So it's like I really have to invest when I'm ready.
But doesn't that, I mean, like with any evidence based, science based reality, these things take time.
Yeah.
Like there's a
Yeah.
reason investigations take time. There's a reason, you know, when people are so critical of the police, like, why haven't they charged them and thrown them in jail right away? There's a reason the judicial system takes so long, because to do things
Exactly.
well takes long. So 6 to 9 months, that wasn't even an investigation in that case. You know, it was much longer.
Exactly. It could be years. No, and the thoroughness that I like to get into definitely is going to take time. And I don't record every day, you know, like I still live my life very much so yeah, that's what I'm excited to cover next.
Well, it was because of me. I am making you stay up really late, but I could talk to you forever. The good news is you guys can listen to Britni talk for hours on TikTok at Britni Nicole Smith. But I mean, is there anything, you've done this for 2 years? Do you have any plan or goal for, you know, this does take time of your day. You are putting yourself out there. Do you have
Yeah.
any like goals of what you'd like to do next in terms of what you want these videos to do in the true crime space? And maybe
Yeah.
it's something that, you know, our audience can help you with in terms of getting more views.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. It's something I haven't really thought of too much, honestly. For me, it's very enjoyable to interact with people and to see people surprised by evidence, change their opinions, like I said. I think, yeah, maybe being put, you know, in a debate with somebody that is very, very for somebody would be fun, and to go back and forth with evidence, or even just honestly, like I would love to be involved with like making a documentary someday. I can't physically do it, but like I would love to be a contributor with information that is far deeper than other, you know, documentaries go. I don't know about you, but I get so frustrated when like there's like people on documentaries where you're like, I read your book. You've talked about so much more, but you're saying the same thing you've said for 10 years. Like, why isn't more detail coming out? So that's something I could see myself maybe getting into somehow. But again, I don't really know how to get into these avenues. I'm just like a very normal person at the end of the day.
Well, that is so awesome. And, you know, normal in the sense that you took a passion and you ran with it, and the proof is in the pudding. I do think you are changing minds based on evidence, which I always think is great, because it helps this current society we're in, where people are entrenched in whatever side they're in, sometimes not knowing why, to open up dialogue again. And if we start in the
Yes.
true crime space, you know, the hope is that we can learn to talk to each other again in society about lots of things, maybe not just true crime. And true crime is a great place to start, because it's the very core of what we believe is important as a society, right?
I
What-
completely agree. And I
yeah.
think too, going at people that have a different opinion and not like vilifying them or belittling them for their opinion, and really being like, this is what I can hand to you to change your mind, like, and be open minded about it too. Like, a lot of people get really aggressive and really mean if people have another opinion. I like to just lay out what's there and hopefully change people's minds and not be aggressive about it. And I think that helps too.
Well, that's certainly something that we feel passionately about too, and it's so wonderful to meet another content creator who is helping facilitate that type of dialogue. More of it is always going to be good. Britni, thank you so much for sharing your passion with TikTok, and also with us old fogies who don't really understand how to download TikTok to our phones, and for
Um,
hanging with us.
It is so amazing to meet you guys. I love your podcast. This is really a dream to be on here and talking with you. It doesn't seem real.
Well, it is. And I hope you guys all check Britni Nicole Smith out on TikTok. And thank you to so many of you who put us in contact with her and said you loved her videos and wanted to see her on this podcast. See, it's proof that we listen. We listen to your request. And Britni, thank you for joining us. But before we
Yeah.
sign off, Brett, is there anything you'd like to add in your fandom of now our TikTok true crime superstar?
Well, I did just want to thank Shannon for emailing us. She was the first person to email us and tell us that we need to get you on the show. And as Al said, we did listen. And then I just wanted to thank Britni for taking the time to join, as Al said, us old fogies who barely understand TikTok to explain what you're doing. I was hoping you would teach us how to be shorter and more concise with our stories, but it sounds like you take as long as we do to tell a story.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's just the way it should be done. That's what I'm taking away from this.
No, definitely.
Oh, thank you, Brittany. Thank you guys so much. As always, let us know what you think at prosecutorspod@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social medias, but if you're going to be on TikTok, go hang out with Britni Nicole Smith and see what she has to offer in the true crime space. But until next time, I'm Alice.
And I'm Brett.
I'm Brittany.
And this is the Prosecutor's Legal Briefs.
That's another thing I do when I'm out for my job. I'll go to all these crime sites. So I go to like a lot of places. Like, I know you guys just did the Stainer case. I went to like all of the places when I was just there a couple weeks ago. So it's really nice working in California. I was just in Modesto too. I went and drove around. And
Have you ever heard of the Edmund Fitzgerald? It's
No.
a ship that sank. And the researchers all say that she'd have made Whitefish Bay if they'd put 15 more miles behind her. There's a song about it. So,
oh, you know what?
when
Probably
you
one of
mentioned
the
it.
shipwrecks that's like right out here because they have signs for them.